at the Ottawa River Muskie Factory.
Good evening and welcome, everyone, to the Suick Seminar Series 2026, episode number 2. This is the casting show, Strategies and Techniques. I'm one of your hosts this evening. My name is John Anderson. I am the owner of the Ottawa River Muskie Factory, and I've been catching muskies on Suicks for 50 years. I know it doesn't look like it, but really, 50 years. And I am joined by the usual suspects, Mr. Brent Bocek from Fishing NV Guide Services, and also an integral member of the Ottawa River Muskie Factory team, somebody I've been doing seminars with and hanging out with and having a lot of fun for a bunch of years. And also on our team, he looks young, but he's highly experienced, our head guide, Noah Oliveira Hill. Give him a wave, Noah. And
thank you.
Our special guest this evening, the better half of the power couple in the muskie world. She's been called the Pipestone Princess. I'm going to call her the Queen of Casting. I don't think I've ever seen her with a trolling rod in her hand in all the videos I've ever seen of her. We have Jessie Baker coming to us live from Green Bay this evening. Jessie and her partner, Doug Wagner, catch more muskies than maybe any other couple in North America. You got some others to throw at us, other suggestions to throw out there for power couples? Please do. And one of the things about Jessie is she and Doug are up on the latest and greatest in the muskie world. So she is a terrific guest for us to have here and to learn from. Jessie grew up at Pipestone Lake at her parents' lodge. She had the muskie addiction early in life, and what a great place to fine-tune that addiction. What a great place to learn to hunt muskies. I come from the lodge world as well. We'll talk about what that looks like on your learning curve. Our outline for our program today, we're going to talk about preparation and information gathering before you go out on the water. What apps, what information do you need to go out and have success today? What kind of strategy should you have in your mind at the start of the day based on the conditions and time? We're going to talk about setting up and using technology in your boat. Doug Wagner and Jessie, top game for technology. So look forward to input on that. Brent is going to talk to us about being efficient in the boat. Making every count cast is a presentation he's given a whole lot of times. And so we're going to pick and choose some pieces from that this evening. Noah is going to talk to us about finishing, figure eighting, and turning follows into pictures at the side of the boat. We've got, I think, 8 videos lined up for you for this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about netting. We have a bad example of netting, which I'm going to talk about, and then a good example too, just to show that, it can go both ways. And the other thing that's on our agenda for tonight is whatever else you guys want to talk about. This is an interactive program. It's a show about learning. We're on the Ottawa River Muskie Factory Facebook channel, the Suick Facebook channel, and we are on the Muskie Factory YouTube channel. Wherever you're watching us, you have the ability to feed us with questions. We will pick several questions out for this evening and discuss them. If we don't get back to your question or get to your question this evening, we promise we will answer every question tonight or in the next couple of days. So without further ado, let's look at bringing our guest out. The first person to ever be a guest on the Suick Seminar Series more than once, Jessie Baker.
What an honor.
Wow.
First person ever to do it twice.
I'm glad you feel special. We all feel really special. Let's talk about bats for a minute. Jessie, you got anything to say on bats?
I'm kind of a bat expert. Well, my cat is a bat expert, but I have the professionals coming out to make sure we don't have any more incidents. But if you do follow me, you saw on my social media yesterday, I got a stray cat 2 years ago, and she just keeps giving me surprises every day. $200 at the vet, $2,500 with exterminators, all the things. So Yeah,
and if you haven't had a bat in your house, I mean, you've had one. I've I've had them in here. It's quite an experience, and I'm not a tough fishing guide. I'm afraid of bats. I thought you were a tough Northern Ontario girl, but you don't like bats either.
I honestly, it would really hurt my reputation if people would have had a live feed camera into my house yesterday, because I just couldn't get my shit together. I was like screaming and throwing things at it, and it was hissing back at me. And I could like kill stuff, but for some reason, that bat just no.
I laid on the floor and laughed for 2 minutes while this bat flew around the room the last time. Then I went and got a towel. That's my best advice I can pass you.
Yeah, I got a fishing net. Luckily, we have about 20 of those. But the muskie net is a little big in the area to cover the bat to get it out the door. So that was another scenario.
That's first good advice. You need the right net.
Mm-hmm. Butterfly net or something.
Whatever you're trying to catch. The holes in the fray bill, definitely too big. Something a little smaller, maybe with a little softer net.
The good news is bats eat a lot of mosquitoes. So
that's what the guy, when he was like came over here, said. He's like, "Oh, you don't want to get rid of them." And I said, "Well, I want to get rid of the ones in my house. They can go to my neighbor's house and eat the mosquitoes from there." Yeah,
we like bat houses outside here because we do have you have a few bugs too, but we have a lot of bugs. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of bugs sometimes around here. Let's get to the muskie talk. I mentioned right off the bat that you grew up in the lodge environment on Pipestone Lake. What a great place to learn. So many people to learn from. I learned in Menaki from the lodge system, and it's structured learning. They've got a plan for you right off the bat. You have a lot of mentors. There's a hierarchy. There's a pecking order, and the more fish you catch, the higher you go on the pecking order. You get a lot of feedback from other people, and if you're at a lodge, a destination lodge, one of the really great benefits for you is that people that you pay money to fish with show up and pay money to fish with you. And so I don't know about you, but I get to fish with all the biologists and TV hosts and DNR and MNR guys I wanted over the years, and tons of learning from that. So why don't you tell us a bit about your experience, Jessie?
Yeah, so when I started at the resort, I was like 18. I was just fresh out of high school. My parents had bought it kind of on a whim. And so I always liked to fish, but didn't really ever think I'd get into guiding. And to be honest, I kind of got forced into it. My dad was kind of just, as he didn't want to do it anymore, kind of was just like, all right, go out and do your dues or whatever. And then I did really start to enjoy it. So I learned so much from just like the interactions I had with people. And I will say, like, my guiding experience versus Doug is totally different because, you know, he started out under a guy for a little bit and then went on his own and kind of just like grew really fast and built this like big empire. But like, he has now experienced customers. He only fishes with probably 15 to 20 customers a year. They're just like all of these like really good customers. And I had a little bit of a different experience because I fished with a lot of people that didn't necessarily know how to muskie fish, but like got excited when they seen a muskie fishing on Pipestone, bass fishing or something. And so I got a lot of, I learned a lot of patience, I guess I'll say. I learned a lot of, but just like how to have a better understanding, learn from other people, learn from my dad, obviously, who was never a muskie angler, but a good guide. And I think guiding too, as much as you have to be a good angler, know your electronics, know everything, you also have to be a good entertainer. And so that's probably where I kind of excel in. My background's in psychology. So, you know, chatting with people and, you know, just getting to know them, that was probably my favorite part. So that was what I was best at. And I did end up catching a few muskies for these people. So that's good too.
Interesting that you dealt with new clients a lot of the time, and Doug deals with high-end clients, and it's very different thing. Having highly experienced clients is actually easier because you just take them out and put them on the fish and let them go to work, you know, and maybe fine tune things, you know, entertain them a little bit with conversation. But new people, especially inexperienced people, there's so much teaching involved and frustration as a guide, because it's a lot easier to catch an experienced angler muskies than a new angler.
Yeah, and I think some of you probably have the same experience. In being a woman is different in the sense that too, like I had a lot of like maybe some guy clients that didn't want to maybe take advice from me, but then I also had female clients that I will say, like stereotypically, like a little bit more sensitive. So trying to teach these women to do things in a way that came off as I'm trying to help and like also like not hurt their confidence. But I always had a hard time. I think the hardest part of being a guide was I had a hard time telling people what to do because I didn't want them to take offense to it. But at the end of the day, it's like you're only trying to give them the best opportunity to catch the fish. And a lot of times when I look back on it now, I'm like, I wish I would have just said something, because you get halfway through your day and you're like, you've watched these figure eights and they're not that great, but you're just like, they're happy to be here and I'm just doing what I'm doing. And then you have like a 4-footer come in and they just like, they do the figure eight that they've been doing that you should have corrected. And you're like, well, if I would have told them what to do, they would have caught that fish. So I learned the hard way, but it took me a few years. But just like having, I guess, the confidence to correct someone. And my problem was I didn't want to offend anyone's feelings. But at the end of the day, I was always like, shit, I just wish I would have told the person, make those turns a little bit bigger, because you would have caught a 4-footer and I would have looked like a hero. But yeah.
Yeah, learning to catch muskies is one thing. Learning to be a good guide, a whole different journey. You touched on something interesting a second ago. Were you saying that women are better students and more trainable than men in the boat?
That's a good point. I would say sometimes I think yes, but also you have to just be very like with women clients, you just have to be like different about how you say it or approach it, right? Because like, I don't know. If Doug was in this conversation, he'd be like, you're crazy, because we have totally different perspectives. But yeah, I think, and I would also argue the fact that it is hard to work with people that have not a lot of experience, but it's also kind of refreshing so that you don't have to fix things that people are already doing wrong when they think they're doing them right. So, you get a couple people that are experienced, but not as willing to take advice from someone that maybe they don't think has as much experience. But you can always be better. That's the thing about muskie fishing, is I think that I'm a good muskie angler, but then I get in a scenario and I'm like, well, I definitely could have done something better there. So you're constantly learning.
Yeah. We always evolve. Brent, who's better, men or women?
I find women actually listen a little bit better.
Yeah.
In the boat, they pay attention. And they're not trying to make that big hero cast. They actually use the mechanics when you teach it to them. Mm-hmm. And they just seem to have a little bit more patience and listen and pay attention. They don't think they know everything, like some guys do.
That's it. We always think that we know everything. And the women just listen to the instruction, follow it, do it, and perform much better. So in terms of teaching somebody, yeah, much easier to teach new female anglers in the boat. I think all four of us here agree on that. So I said at the start, I don't know how many videos I've seen of you online in the last several years. It seems every time I turn on my computer or open my phone, like I saw the bat video earlier today when I flipped on my phone, you come up first. And so why do you prefer casting? Why did you gravitate to casting?
Honestly, I've never really been a big troller. I guess because I'm self-taught, I just went with whatever I was seeing. I do think that there's been times that I've trolled on Pipestone, that Doug and I have trolled together, because I do think it's an effective way to learn a body of water a lot faster than casting. You can just cover so much more water. But I also will like openly admit that I don't feel like I have the amount of knowledge that some people do when it comes to trolling to like be successful. Like people don't just think like you put a bait out there and you going forward and you're like, all right, we're doing this right. Like baits go different depths. Like you got to be watching your structure all the time. And so I've just been a big fan of casting, also because I bet you 80% of the time that I've fished outside of guiding, but like, well, sometimes like, yeah, before I even started guiding, 80% of the times I'm fishing by myself. So I'm not going to go out and troll. It's just not as effective where I could go out and cast. So I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel, but I also just like would rather cast than troll, as bad as that sounds to probably some people. I know that's very like, oh, trolling doesn't count. But for me, it's just, it's more exciting to cast.
Yeah, we got four casters on the screen right now, and I think we all feel the same. I had Spencer Berman on a few years ago. He's one of the best muskie guys, phenomenal caster, our troller. And I started out by saying Spencer's from Lake St. Clair, and I started out by saying, true or false, Spencer, fish caught trolling only count for half, and fish caught trolling on Lake St. Clair don't count at all because it's just too easy. And so, yeah. When I was in Northern Ontario and when I was in Menaki, I had a whole bunch of really great mentors. Browner, Ken Stunnell, Roop Ross, people like that. And I got told right off the bat, don't troll. Mm-hmm. If you troll, people won't talk to you. Mm-hmm. It was really looked down on. And that's going back to the 70s. So has Pipestone got any of that? Do casters look down on trollers?
There's actually this one guy, this older guy, he's been fishing up there probably for like 30, 40 years. And he's just getting to the age now where it's just more effective for him to troll. And I have a lot of conversations with Dick Pearson, who's like probably the person I look up most to in the fishing industry. But here's this like 80-year-old guy, and he's like texting me like, it's killing me right now that I'm trolling. And I'm like, I want to be you when I'm 80. So like, no excuses, guys. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not as rewarding to me. And then maybe that's because anytime I've trolled, like with Doug, he's doing all the work. So like I catch a fish. Do I feel like it's mine? I really don't. But he has customers on Green Bay where like, it's September, that's all they do is troll. And then that's their best opportunity to catch a fish. So no hate to trollers, but not for me. I'm going to stick with casting.
Yeah, I have a line in my presentations, like the craziest 45 seconds you can have in freshwater fishing is bringing that 4-foot fish into the boat right behind your lure hot, turning it in a circle 5 or 6 times, having it crush your lure 2 feet from the end of your rod with your drag clamp down. And that next 45 seconds is the craziest and hardest 45 seconds to control. And we fish for that all day one time. We have that 45 seconds once, and that's it. And and you never forget that picture. Even if you don't catch it, when you see that fish the first time, you never forget that. So trying to share that with somebody, I think there's some of that in what we do. You agree, guys?
Yeah, there's always a time for trolling, and that's usually when we're eating lunch.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did have a couple customers that always trolled at lunch, and I'd absolutely hate it because I'm like, so much work for me to get all this trolling shit out for 40 minutes. But yeah, it's a good point.
And it does, honestly, it does give if the people aren't used to casting all day, it does give them a little bit of a break. Mm-hmm. But we've caught some really nice fish eating lunch. Yeah,
absolutely, man. You got to have a lure in the water the whole time. When you're going to talk on efficiency shortly, but that's one of the things for good guides is there is always a lure in the water. If you guys aren't willing to cast, we're going to troll. There's always a chance to catch a fish. You got to take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about preparation before you go out on the water. So I'll preface this by saying we were at the Ottawa Boat and Sportsman Show last weekend, all three of us. What a great show. And I sat down with young Noah to listen to Greg Emile. Greg is one of the top salmon fishermen in the province, maybe the best walleye guide on Bay of Quinte. He is a master troller. And I sat and listened to his presentation, and I couldn't believe how technical it was. I haven't gone salmon trolling for a few years, but just the amount of information, the amount of things he looked up before he even got to his boat, the preparation he did before going out for the day in terms of looking at wind changes, weather, the clarity of water from satellite shots, water temperature depth profiles from apps and such. And so it made me wonder if I'm not missing something. I mean, I'm old school, and you guys all know I'm technical. And so us old guys, you get into habits and you go on what you know. I think I can produce. I always think I can work up a muskie, but technology and preparation is a bigger and bigger part of muskie fishing these days. What do you want to know before you go, Jessie?
Weather is obviously the number one thing I'm kind of thinking about. Back when I was guiding, I would start my like preparation the night before, and oh man, I used to get such anxiety going to bed because I'm like, all right, what am I gonna do and where am I gonna go? And before I kind of like had necessarily tools that I use, because when I first started, I'd just be like going out winging it, and I'd get on a milk run, and I would never get off my milk run, and so I always look what the weather's doing and what the weather's done in the past couple days and kind of look at the forecast. I always check, obviously, the moon phases. I'm a big believer in the moon phases. I love majors and minors. Doug would make fun of me because most times when I'm fishing by myself, I'm just a majors and minors girl. I'm going out to capitalize on the best opportunity. I use the ISO Lunar app for that. And then I also use the Muskie Metrics to look at the biometrics. Jeff, like at the Muskie Metrics, actually just implemented a new Muskie AI, which has been a really cool tool, not only for like people that aren't super experienced in muskie fishing, but some of us that do know how to muskie fish, but maybe you're going to a different body of water. And so the biggest factor probably, I'm like, Doug and I just had this conversation 6 years ago. I would have said there's no current on Pipestone, and that I don't even know why I said that because it's a lake that flows, but there's so much current, more current than I expected. So I really watch the wind to see what it's doing and kind of how that affects things. And that just like sets my day up to where I'm going. And then I get out there and I hit my usual spots that are going to be good for that weather pattern. But I've also like learned that I have to pivot a little bit. So I make a point, even when I'm fishing for fun, I always try to fish 2 to 3 new spots every time I go out. And usually I'm rewarded with one of those spots to find something new. So yeah, those Muskie Metrics and ISO Lunar are probably the 2 apps that I use, but weather and the moon phase is probably the 2 things that I consider most.
I'm big on Muskie Metrics too. I use that out there. And you were talking about a new AI component with it?
Yeah, so they just launched it not long ago. And basically it understands 4 different bodies of water. It's trout water, stain water, in Canada, like on the Shield Lakes, and then inland stained, and then trout waters. And basically you can go there like you would I'm a big AI fan. I'm sure there's going to be people on this call that are like, let's not do AI, but just like technology, it's a tool that if it's utilized correctly, it educates you, but also just makes your time on the water that more effective. Like us, we're lucky that we get to do it for a living. So we're out fishing every single day, but like weekend warriors only get the weekends, right? So like you got to know all of these things before you go so you can be most effective in, let's say you fish 12 hours a day, so a 24-hour period. So yeah, it's just basically like a chat bot, and we've put a bunch of data together. Jeff's like super data driven. And so basically you can talk to this AI app and it's like a guide in your pocket. It's pretty cool. And I think it'll help a lot of people that are going to new bodies of water just to understand, like, where do you even start? Like, you go to Lake of the Woods, it's like, where the hell if you've never been there, it's like, where do you start? Well, I guess I go on YouTube and try to find some spots, but like not a lot of people are giving spots up. So you got to break it down of like, where are you going to go and what's going to be most effective?
Yeah. And I mean, I have gray hair, but I actually took my first AI programs this past October. And I've been using AI more and more and asking bigger and bigger and deeper questions.
Yep.
And yeah, it's going to come into the world and into the fishing world just like a storm. So you know, it's already starting to appear. And like you said, they're tools. You're learning in the muskie world. When you stop learning, you stop catching.
Yeah.
The time you quit learning, you're destined to catch less fish unless you stay up with the latest and greatest. I love that you said you go and fish 2 or 3 new spots every day, or when you're out on your own. And you know, I'll say this: if I have guests and we've had success and they're really good, I've had somebody for a few days, I'll go and try a new spot or 2 with them. And maybe not even say it, but I know it's a good spot. I'm not going to, you know, for a lot of reasons, but especially if you have good guests, you let 2 good guests work an area over for you, and all of a sudden, bam, that's a new spot. That's new fish. That's, you got to have that. You got to keep searching.
I wanna add something onto your question that you originally asked Jessie there, John. As far as what am I looking at before going out? Obviously, yeah, weather, moon phase, those are big considerations. But for me, I'm looking at the weather and what has happened in the past with that specific weather. Where did I catch fish when I had that exact northwest wind, that temperature, that time of year? Those are the main things that I'm actually taking into consideration. And I'm looking at what has happened in the last week or two, but also what has happened a full year prior. Let's say I'm fishing in September, mid-September. What happened the September before that, mid-September? And then prior to that, where did I catch fish? And what was the weather like? Try to match.
Keeping logs and looking at your history is a big part of being a muskie person. Patterns repeat, and I do the same thing. I mean, our photos are organized chronologically, and so I'm looking at what's the third week of June been like last year, the year before that. And if the third week of June is, man, it's way colder this year, then I'm looking, okay, what's early June like? More based on water temperatures, trying to match it up. Jessie talked about having, when you were starting out, you had a milk run, and probably most guides had a milk run. And then Noah talked about all of a sudden now you've got 6 or 8 milk runs in your pocket. It's a northwest wind today, so I'm going to these spots. It's a south wind today. Things are tough. I'm going deeper. I'm going to do this. And so you mentioned Dick Pearson. I'm a huge Dick Pearson fan for a long time as well. Kudos to you for getting to hang out and learn from him, and we all become trollers eventually, Dick. So the fact that you're still out there at 80 is fantastic. We all want to be that person. Dick used to have arguments with who's his fishing partner from all those years ago about to go where the wind blows or to go where the wind doesn't blow. Talk about the wind for a second. What does that mean to you if you're going out and guiding?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, wind is probably the biggest factor that I've taken into consideration the last few years, just because it's dictating the current. But I'll usually go so on a very stagnant day, there's not any wind at all. I'll follow the wind pattern from the previous day. So if there's a really heavy northwest wind, I'm gonna go make sure I check all my water temperatures. But I'm gonna if all the cold water, because we are a cold deep water cold, if it's all blowing into the northwest, I'm going to try to find the pockets of hot or the pockets of warm water where it's on, the east side, east shoreline, or wind blown points and stuff like that, neck down areas. We don't get a ton of big windy days that aren't fishable because Pipestone's only 3/4 of a mile wide. And so when we do get really windy days, we'll get the funnels in the lake. So all of those current seams where at neck downs in those areas, that's where I'm targeting most. On Lake of the Woods, I'll go to all those really wind blown points, and then I'll fish the slack water. That's usually where that's the best time to go try a spot, is when it's been really crushing in there with wind, because that's going to be your best opportunity. Bait fish will be in there and all that different type of stuff. So that's when I'll try new spots. Because I bet you everyone could say this about every lake, is you go to Pipestone, and everything looks good. You go to Lake of the Woods, everything looks good. So I think that's why we have milk runs, because we're okay, well, everything looked good at one point, and then I found 10 to 15 spots that were really killer. But I'd be curious too. I always look into previous years, but it's weird. And on something about Pipestone, I'm sure other bodies of water, but I'll have a really hot killer spot one season, and the next season it's completely dead. It's I can't find a single fish there. And I'm where the hell did these fish go? And technology, whether you hate it or love it, has come into place so well to just realize what this structure looks like around these areas, because those fish don't actually move far off the structure that you were finding them on. They're just gone to a different spot within that same area. I had a killer spot. I call it low portage on Pipestone, and it was so hot. Loved it. Just like this like isolated rock pile. And then one season I couldn't see any fish. Introduced live scope. I start actually looking around. I had my live scope pointing outwards, and I was realizing that when I was fishing the structure, all of the bait fish was actually behind me. And it totally changed how I fished the spot. And I started to see fish again. And I was like, oh, these fish, just whether they got pressured, I don't know. There's not a lot of pressure on Pipestone, but for some reason they moved off of the structure and were sitting right where my boat was going over. And that happens, I think, a lot more than people expect, that you're actually running over the fish every time you fish a spot. So Dick Pearson actually wrote in his book, Muskies on the Shield, that you should fish a spot twice. You should fish it so you're hitting the structure, and you should fish it again so that you're now hitting the spot that your boat just went over, which I've caught a ton of fish doing that. So
yeah, there's an expression generated around here about fishing the American side of structure and the Canadian side of structure, especially in the fall. And as Canadians, Americans and bass guys got to have something to throw at. Weeds, rock pile, you can see logs, it's structure, it's right there, and so you throw at it. But the Canadians, we know, especially in the fall, that a lot of times your bigger fish aren't on the structure. They're hanging out suspended off the structure. And so you got to fish, like you said, you got to fish both sides of that. Good point. Good point. I want to go back on something you said a moment ago. You talked about looking around when there was big wind in an area and going and finding temperature pockets or areas of different temperature in that. I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah, I mean, that comes into play like a lot too in the spring, like when you're really trying to find that warmest water where those fish are going to be. And then it's just, I mean, Doug is honestly the person that taught me that. A lot of what I've learned and how I've developed as an angler has come from him. But I'm just like always trying to look at my water temperature and what it is and like how it's different. So like Pipestone, we call it like a south end. So that's like basically the portage, or no, like where the Narrows opens up to our fishing resort, which is in the middle. And then we have a northwest arm, and the northwest arm is like such a cool place. Like every place is almost like its own little lake, but it's so hit or miss. And like the temperature will change so much. Like I'll go up there one day and like a temperature on the lake will be like 70 degrees, and I'll go up the northwest arm and it's 64. Like that makes a difference to the fish. So I'm always trying to like be aware of that. And then just, mapping out my day based on, if I go up there and I see 64 and I don't see fish on like 3 of my good spots, out of there. Just burned $50 in gas, but don't care.
Absolutely. Six degrees is a huge difference. And I asked you to go back on that because listening to Greg last week, he talked about chasing salmon on Lake Ontario, and it was all about dirty water and warm water. So those were the two things he was seeking through satellite imagery. And if he found the warm water or the edge of the dirty water, that was his target zone, and that was where the biggest fish were. And I think that applies to us in the muskie world too. And I'm wondering how if I should start looking into this more on the river, if I can get this information for the Ottawa River. So something I'm going to consider.
Yeah.
New learning. Old dog, new tricks for sure.
We don't get like that water. Like Pipestone's a really clear lake, and I mean we'll get like an algae bloom and stuff, but it's nothing like I see on Lake of the Woods. And like some of the times when we fished on Lake of the Woods, like it just turns absolutely green. Like when Doug and I fished the Muskie Cup this year, the second day we went out, like you could see your figure 8 perfectly, and it was just like slop, like pea soup. And I think that definitely affects the fish. And like, so you're going to try to find, water that doesn't have that, but sometimes it's like unavoidable. And Doug had a couple, he just gave a seminar actually, and he was talking about like the algae bloom and kind of what to do with it. But I don't have as much experience in that because Pipestone doesn't ever really get that dirty, but you guys are fishing like chocolate milk out there, aren't you?
We go from the Ottawa River is a very dynamic fishery. It goes On the lower Ottawa where we are, it goes from 0 visibility in the case of post storms, a lot of rain, to probably about 7 feet, 6 or 7 feet max, which I consider like the perfect amount of visibility for muskie fishing. That 4, 5, 6 feet, enough where the fish can get on your lure, but they don't have a really good look at you. They can't look past it and see you in the boat 40 and 50 feet away, which they can easily do, and often spooks them on clear water. So yeah, very, very dynamic, and actually look for that 6 or 7 feet of water of visibility ideally. Do you fish with your guests? Let's talk about that as 4 guides for a moment. And I think the answer to that, well, I'm going to let you guys answer that first, and then I have an evolved answer.
I literally just watched a video on there. This is a hot topic. And to be honest, when I first started guiding, I didn't fish because I kind of had the mentality like, this is their trip. They're paying me. Like, it's my job. And then I guess Doug and like a couple other people that I had talked to were like, kind of changed my perspective of muskie fishing, because I've muskie fished alone. And to me, more lines I never fish if there's like 3 people, but if there's 2 people and it's me, like I'm always throwing a bait in the back. So I'm always fishing now, because I think any opportunity for me to learn what these fish are doing to better help my clients, that's my number one goal. Am I, like, to be honest, am I going to pull my bait away on a 52 incher? Absolutely not. But like, I think muskie fishing for me is just anyone in the boat catching it is exciting. I understand that it's, people are paying you to do it, but like, I also want to give people the whole experience. This is what it's like to catch a muskie. Like, this is how I can teach you by actually doing, and obviously giving them the best opportunity in the front of the boat with the best bait. So that's kind of my opinion. If a guest asked me not to, then I definitely wouldn't. But I kind of also want them to understand, like, at the end of the day, this is a team sport. If I catch the fish and you net it, we caught this fish. Vice versa, it's the same thing. So,
yeah,
interesting answer. A lot of the components that I would have in my answer, I have a more evolved answer. Brent, what do you think?
I try not to. If they want me to, I will. If I think, you've gone maybe over half the day or 3/4 of the day, and maybe their abilities, you don't think they're going to be able to hook a fish themselves, then maybe I'll jump in and start casting. As I said, if they want me to fish, I definitely will. Another time is if I am fishing, if I hook a fish, I will give the rod off to one of the clients, of course. But it's usually I'll have somebody in the back with me, so to speak, and if we'll say the person who hasn't caught a muskie before, they're the one that's going to get the rod. But on average, I don't, unless they ask me to, or if I really feel I need to help the boat see a fish.
Okay, young Noah, what do you think?
I basically do exactly what Brent said. I try not to fish, at least at the start. If they're experienced guys in the boat, let's say there's just 1 or 2 of them, towards the end of the day, maybe I will if they ask me to. Usually they don't care. The experienced guys don't care. Or sometimes the newcomers they're just there for the photo. So my rule is, if I'm fishing, I can cast, but I don't reel fish, and I just net fish. That's all I do. So I can cast.
I think it comes down to customers too, because like,
exactly. It's all about what they want.
And I feel like in a lot of scenarios with the customers that I fish with, like, I don't actually know if I handed the rod off, if they would even take it in some scenarios where, so yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is such a heated debate, and I think like everyone's opinion is everyone's opinion, but at the end of the day, like, I think the most important thing is just like, it's just a good experience. So like, if it's not going to be a good experience for your customers, then you shouldn't. But I feel like a lot of the times when people fish with me, they're like, they want to fish with me. They're like, I'm coming fishing with you. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, all right, let's do this thing.
Exactly. I find a lot too, like, yeah, some of the experienced clients that, let's say it's their first time fishing on the Ottawa River. They want me, someone who's been fishing it for years, they want me to fish alongside of them so they can watch and they can learn from someone who does it on a daily. Even though they may know the basics, there's always little different tricks between each body of water that you go to, and between different anglers. Everyone knows a different thing or two that you may not know. So yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's really what the customers want or need.
For sure.
I think that's what it comes down to too. And for me, I think the answer's evolved as technology has evolved too. So listening to your answer, Jessie, I have one of my favorite all-time clients is a great friend, Wally Robbins. Wally pulls his lure away from anything under 45 inches and then tells you, you didn't catch fish at the end of the day. But he pulled his fish away from 444s during the day. Okay, I want that feedback. One person casting the shoreline, there's the whole outside. So all day with one guy casting what I think is the A spot just isn't providing me the feedback. And if we're catching fish, then that's good. But you're not always not catching fish is a big part of the muskie world. So I used to argue with my client. He's my friend of mine. He started out as a client, but I want the feedback of that second line. And if, I think that's the A side, but if all of a sudden, instead of throwing an inline on the A side, it's throwing a glide out the B side or fishing deeper out the B side is the trick. We're not going to discover that, or we're going to discover that a lot faster. Your day is going to be better. And I want a muskie in the boat, even though me catching it didn't add any value to that for Wally. So my answer evolved a little bit through time, getting that information back about what's on the outside of the boat can be achieved by me sitting and staring at my computer. I call it my computer, your fish finder now. In the old days, you learned there were fish there because it showed up at the side of the boat. With side imaging and live scope now, your guest is casting there and all of a sudden, there's the fish there. You're pointing fish out on both sides to people. It's a different game. So, I don't know. In the end, it's what you want. And as a guide, I wonder if my time isn't better spent pointing out targets, every target, like concentrating on what's on the screen and having them cast at that fish, every fish, instead of maybe missing some when I'm fishing. So in the end, what your clients want, and technology's made that easier and easier.
But at least you know what, John, when Wally shows up, you're going to have nice clear skies.
Wally Blue Sky Robbins, man. It's gonna be 95 degrees, sunny, and there won't be any wind for 3 days.
We actually have a couple questions about tough days. I don't know if you want to answer them now or at the end of the show.
Yeah, why don't you bring one out?
All right, give me 1 sec. Dave's. Enjoy my family time, and the only way I'm getting them out is to fish on calm, blue sky, hot days, which I understand is probably the worst time to go. What strategies do you suggest for those hard days?
I would have said that those were the hardest days, but those also could be some of the best days.
Yeah. When I had a trailer in the Kawartha Lakes, the guy used to say to me, now the guy that muskie fished in our trailer park, he goes, how come you can go out there in those flat, calm days and catch fish still? Oh, because you're on the water. You can't catch them when you're sitting on the dock or in your trailer or whatever. Anytime you're on the water, maybe the fish aren't active, but you have a chance at a reaction strike. As long as you're on the water, you got a chance of catching fish.
Yeah. I would say look at your moon phases, because I always say this too with people that bring like kids out or like their wives that are like, can't, fish a 12-hour day. I always say, look at your moon phases. When's the major? When's the minor? Fish for those 2 hours, capitalize on that time and don't beat it to death, because those really hot days that's what I'll do is I'll fish when it's prime time, and then I'll go fish for lake trout or something like that where I'm not throwing big lures and wearing myself out. But that would probably be my biggest suggestion, because you are working against what typically is the best pattern. But we've had some really great days on Pipestone when it was dead flat, calm, and sunny, just like burning bucktails.
Yeah, that high speed retrieve on those really hot days in August can absolutely make it happen.
I also found that the average between 2 and 4 on those days when the water's at its warmest, was with muskies being cold-blooded, everything they eat digests so much quicker. When the water's at its warmest that time of year is when those fish seem to get a little more active also.
Good stuff. Dave, my last comment to you would be focus on the sunset. So a lot of the time, if they give us a choice to choose a time in the summer to go out, we're probably leaving at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and fishing until 10. And we have a lot of blue sky days in the summer. That sunset, and especially that post sunset into the dark on the blue sky days, if you have high pressure and your fish are inactive a lot during the day, laying on the bottom, seems extra active or extra vulnerable as you get to sunset and after sunset. So on those blue sky days, I really like to stay out late, Dave. Hope that works for you.
So yep. All right. That's that one. We have a couple other ones that are kind of the same, but we can save those for later.
You got another one? You got a second one there, Noah?
Yeah, sure. If things are slow, no matter if casting or trolling, what do you start changing up first, speed or bait size?
Bait, not the size of the bait, but the actual bait. I mean, depends what you're throwing.
Yeah.
And it depends on the weather too. I mean, this is a Suick seminar, but there's like so many different baits that you could try. But like some sort of like pull pause bait is a really good bait to throw when things are slow. Like most of the time people are probably throwing bucktails or straight retrieve lures. So I always try to switch it up with something that's a little bit slower, just so that I can just see if I can even interest them. And sometimes I'm a big believer in small blades because I don't want to throw anything bigger than I have to. But like those big blades do come into play if you're not moving fish on smaller blades, just because muskies they're still a curious creature and they're going to come look at something that's just doesn't seem right. So that's what I would do, is just switch up the type of bait that you're using first.
I'm changing speed myself. I'm introducing a lot of pauses. I'm generally introducing some slower casts and stop casts, and I'm using that Jersey cast with a curly Sue, something that you're casting out, sticking your belly out, dropping your jaw, and just retrieving really slowly, letting the tail do the work. I gotta say, I know that guy, Jay Cressman, and just on a technology issue, I was so pleased with new technology out in the boat. I was fishing with Jay in October. We got our 4th fish of the day. The rod went off, and we were watching the Blue Jays game in the dark, on the phone, in the boat when the 4th rod went off on their way to go to the World Series. So that's some of the best use of technology you can have out in your boat when you're muskie fishing too. Blue Jays game and the cell phone.
I watched the Golden Goal by Crosby a few years, however many years ago that was now. That was in Vancouver, I believe, while I was ice fishing.
Yeah, we're not talking about Olympic hockey right now, Brent. Being Canadians. And so, what do you think? Is it time for video?
Sure.
We got 3 great videos from Jessie in a row. They're short. There's good learning points off each of them. Why don't you start with video number 1, Noah, and Jessie, you can just talk right over it.
Yeah, Jessie, just feel free to talk over. I don't exactly know what order you wanted them in, but this is the first one I got.
Hopefully there's no sound because I'm probably saying swear words.
I think you're okay.
Okay.
There's no swearing in muskie fishing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This actually, this was a really fun. That dead rise where you let it hit the top is probably one of the most underrated Suick technique there is. I saw a lot of fish just like literally letting it hit the surface.
I thought I saw one. Oh,
So explain what you mean by a dead rise, Jessie.
Yeah, so the death rise is arguably the most important part of actually working a Suick, in my opinion, is that you have to let it. I actually usually let it do it a couple times out in the cast, but then like 15 feet from the boat, you really just want to let that bait just slow. So pause, let it slowly rise. That's like where you get the muskies, their mouth in them, they're doing all the things. And then that first hard jerk after is usually when you get the reaction bite. But I did it in another video too with that fish I lost a couple years ago. But if I can't get them to react on that, then I will actually let it hit the surface for like a few seconds. And then it kind of has almost that wiggle, like whoosh, like a sound effect. And that's how I've kind of enticed them to bite. But yeah, if you're not doing your death rises, you need to be doing your death rises.
That is a nugget of gold for anyone out there listening. If you're throwing a Suick, which the four of us are doing a lot, that pause a couple of times, let it rise up on the way back to the boat. Never a bad idea to stop your Suick. And I got to say, one of my favorite bites of all is later in the fall, that weighted Suick and your death rise is coming up. Your lure's rising up, especially like a Franken Suick, which I have weighted almost neutrally. It's rising up so slowly and just twisting and turning. And that fish just comes screaming up off the bottom. You watch the take it so fast, it's grab it and go back down and boom, game on. So just moments of magic in muskie fishing. Absolutely. What do you got for video number 2?
Same day, by the way, I caught 4 fish on this spot on the same Suick.
Wow.
On the same lap around it. Oh, got it out of the cast. And you know what's funny too is when I watch videos back, I actually work a Suick probably faster than I thought I did, even in the fall. But I don't. It's worked for me. I think that's where the importance of the death rise comes in. Is if you're working your bait fast, you have to allow an opportunity for that fish to bite it. So that's why like pauses and death rises are so important.
All right. Good point. Comment, anyone?
Good color too, if anyone's fishing Lake of the Woods. I am coming out with a new custom color with Mike pretty soon that it's going to be probably the next best Suick on Lake of the Woods, but that bronze perch is like, I don't know. It's stupid how good it works up there.
All right.
You know, it's amazing how we always talk about fishing baits fast for muskie. You know, you can't work a bait too fast, but then you're throwing a bait like a Suick, it's on that pause when they always hit it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Absolutely. Video number 3. What do you got, Noah?
Okay, same spot, guys. Just crushing it in this lap around. Oh. Actually, no, that isn't the same spot. That was the same day, though. We were fishing a deep hole where like these guys were walleye fishing and they were talking to us in the background. It's a little guy.
There she is.
Say that again, Jessie. You were fishing a deep pool?
Yeah, so we were just fishing this like one deep hole that like the walleyes go, like just a mud hole in the fall where the walleyes go. And these guys were walleye fishing and we were moving fish all around them. So we were kind of just like going around them. And then we had a couple interactions, but they saw that eat and they were pretty pumped. And then they go, "Is that a pike?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." But
I just watched that. When I watched that video, I just wanted to point something out. That fish didn't even actually get its mouth on your bait.
No.
That just goes to show you how important sharp hooks are.
Mm.
When they just graze it, you want that hook to grab hold in that fish. If your hooks aren't sharp, I mean, we sharpen our hooks, I don't know, multiple times a day after every fish. If we bump anything, or if it's just been sitting in the tackle box for a few days, sharpen the hooks. Because then you get moments like that where if your hooks aren't sharp, that bait's just going to graze right off the fish rather than stick.
Yep.
Good eyes. Good point, young Noah. All right. Maybe we'll let Brent Bocek take over the screen for a few minutes and talk about efficiency, making every cast count. So what are your considerations for someone, especially someone who's newer to muskie fishing? What are some of the basics that you
One
focus
of the big things is body positioning. Noah's gonna pull up a video here in a minute. When I'm retrieving a bait, if I'm throwing blades, I'm gonna have my rod pointing right at the bait and let the reel do the work, using a lower gear ratio reel. But I'm always in a position, I reel with my right hand, where I'm going from left to right to set the hook. We measured this a while back. I did something at the sales store in Burlington here, and I actually had brought a tape measure. And when I set the hook, my rod's actually traveling at about 15 feet. So it's really important to have that proper body positioning where you're comfortable. You can set the hook, turn your body at the same time, and even take a step to get those hooks in really hard. So no, if you play that first video there.
So this is good body positioning.
This is good body positioning. See, I'm in a position there where I'm throwing a big curly Sue there. I'm not working it like the Jersey retrieve that slowly, but I'm just a straight retrieve on it. And when I set the hook, you can see I'm able to turn, get a really good hook set. We actually had to cut the hooks out of that fish. This, John, you probably remember this fish. End of the day after I've been fishing for 3 days. You and I have been out for 2 long days. It's dark, it's cold, we're both tired. I'm getting a little bit lazy and I'm working it on my backhand where when I get hit, I have to go from my right to my left. When you play this video, Noah, you're going to see my rod, it loads up, but I really don't get a good hook set. I don't get a lot of movement in my rod when I set the hook. And if you recall, John, when we got the hooks out of that fish, we had one hook in it and it came out really easy with the pliers because we didn't get that good hook penetration.
We all have a strong side to hook set on, and we all have a weak side.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can use your strong side, you're
so you want to be
better.
You want to be coming, obviously you want to be coming across your body, and then you can also turn and quite often take that extra little bit of a step to get those hooks in. Well, I always like to say, we spend too much time, effort, and money chasing these fish. When you get a shot at them, you want to do everything you can to make sure you get that fish to the boat.
Mm-hmm.
I always teach people to set that hook with their hip, not with their arms too. Bass guys set the hooks with their arms. Muskie people, it's a whole body turn. You are putting the whole 100-pound test of that line. You're pulling as hard as you can to drive those hooks home. I mean, especially the big muskies, and a Suick is wood. And so the teeth get buried when a fish bites. It's amazing how hard they bite down. The fish get buried a lot of times. Without the big hook set, you just move that fish's head. You need to rip that lure to actually have that lure move in its mouth. And so, yeah, you can't set the hook too hard.
Yeah, if you notice in that first video there, I actually, you can see you're talking about using your hips. I never even thought about that, but you can see where you're turning, you're using your hips and your whole body to get those hooks in.
What do you mean by an outside turn? You're big on the outside turn, Brent. What do you mean?
Oh, on a figure eight. So that's one thing when I'm doing seminars, I tell people, I say it probably 10 times during a seminar, and I'll actually get them to repeat it to me because I want them to think about it when they're out fishing in the summertime. What did that guy at the seminar say last week or back in the winter? Outside turns are away from the boat. If you're going, a lot of times we're going to a big circle, but if you're doing an actual figure eight, your outside turn's got to be away from the boat. That way you can always set the hook. If your outside turn's coming towards the boat and you get hit, you have nowhere to set the hook. You're going to be smashing your $300-400 rod into the side of the boat, and you're not going to get a good hook set. So your outside turn's got to be away from the boat. When you're coming across, you can set the hook. Your outside turn, you can set the hook. Coming back across, you can set it, and your next outside turn, you can still set it. If they're towards the boat, you're not going to be able to get that hook set. So I tell people, make a few casts off the dock, go out in the middle of the lake where you're not going to, where you figure you're not going to catch a fish, and just practice that for 5-10 minutes before you actually start fishing for the day. Get those muscle memories, your mechanics going, so that every time you come into the boat, you make your boat side maneuver, and you're always leading yourself into a figure eight where your outside turns are. Outside turns are, John?
Yep.
Away from the boat.
Away from the boat. Sorry.
Away from the boat.
I didn't know what you're asking.
But I think that too, I don't know if it depends on, like, I'm a big believer too, like, because I'm left-handed. I don't know if anyone else here is left-handed, but like when I come into the boat, I had such a bad habit of coming in and just like naturally this like going out. And I never wanted to let my fish eat in the first turn. And I always try to speed up and get to my second turn. And Doug would be like, why are you rushing for your first turn? Well, that's my weak. If I'm going to catch a fish in that side of on the right side of the boat, and I'm going to set my hook back, I'm actually going to be setting it back into my weak hand. Whereas I always want to come left-handed, do my big left-handed turn, and then set back because that's my strong point, which I screwed up for years until I realized that what hand you reel actually determines which way you should come into your figure eight and which way you should. And I was like, I just couldn't figure that out for the life of me. But it's like those little things in the moment where you're like, what am I supposed to do again? But
yeah, I find they usually bite when you don't want them to bite. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, you're ready? No, it's not going to go. And then it catches you off guard. That's just the way it goes.
Yep.
And depending how the fish hits your bait, sometimes you can go forward with your bait. Sometimes you come back on it. But on average, I find those outside turns away from the boat work a lot better for me.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Noah's got a couple videos on finishing at the side of the boat.
Yes.
Spectacular videos. I think 1 million hits on the first video this past year, going towards that. If I'm not mistaken. What do you got, Noah?
All right. You want me to play the videos first?
Sure. Well, whatever you want to do.
Talk about play the videos and we'll talk because we kind of just talked over the finishing at the side of the boat a little bit. But give me 1 sec here. All right. This is the first one I got. So this is something that I've never seen before. I've been muskie fishing for 10 years now, and I've never seen anything like this. The muskie that you're going to see in this video actually comes up to the boat. It wasn't following my bait, though. It just came to look at me. So play the video. I don't know if you can see my mouse here, but if you keep your eye right around here, you'll see the fish come in, and you'll see that I see it. And then I go into my finish at the side of the boat. I'm working a glide bait, so it's kind of hard to do a figure eight with a glide bait. Take some practice. There's the fish right there. Down she goes. There's my bait. So I just danced my glide bait around, and I do this for about 45 seconds. The fish wasn't it wasn't following my bait and then got uninterested or spooked. It just came up, it looked at me, and it swam away. So I had a good feeling that fish was probably going to come back. So I still don't see the fish at this point. Now I see her. There she is.
Oh, dog on the net.
Oh, yeah.
Got to have help.
Netting a fish solo is hard enough. To throw the dog in the mix, it's nearly impossible. When I'm out solo, I usually bring him, especially if I'm not fishing for a full day. He likes coming out. He loves musky fishing. And
absolutely.
Everyone, 90% of musky anglers would have never figure eighted that long.
Yeah. The only reason I did was because, like I said, that fish didn't follow my bait in. If it did follow my bait in, I probably would have let's say it then swam off. I would have done a few more turns. Then I would have gave another cast back at that fish. And then if it still didn't come in, I probably would have maybe gave one more cast back in the direction. Then I would have backed off the spot completely, recircled back, and then fished it again. So I give that fish a few minutes to reset, because I find fish, they use specific spots on the spots as their kill zones, as I like to call it. they'll set themselves up in a spot that they can ambush that prey. So if you hassle that fish and it got spooked off because it knew something was off, or it, you know, it's been caught before, it saw the boat, I find that they'll never get back. So given just 1 or 2 casts back at that fish, you don't see it, back off the spot completely, fish it again, or come back on a moon phase. So yeah, so that's the first video I got. It's pretty cool.
Quick, if I can offer a quick comment, that is an absolute master class on working a glide bait. I don't know too many people who can work a glide bait as well as Noah does. That was a manta in the picture, which is a good glide bait, and I've used since they first came out, but I put it away for a lot of years. This is a Suick wobble, and so in glide bait, this is same style of bait, and so the difference is that manta will stay on a line completely until probably one of the easiest baits there is to walk the dog. But a lot of us prefer baits that not only go side to side, but are much more erratic in the up and down sense too. Yeah. It's thought that produces more fish in the musky world. So I really like this. I like the manta just as well, both at different times. The manta is very hard to use. I will say glide baits are finesse baits and not everybody can use them. This is what I call an idiot bait. And not that you're giving it to idiots.
Hey, that's one of my favorite baits, John.
My point, you're making my point for me. You're helping me make my point for me right there, Brett. But this bait will work erratically no matter who you give it to, no matter what they do with it. And so if they just work it and pause it and work it and pause it, even somebody who doesn't have the finesse to work that manta can still get the glide bait retrieve, an effective glide bait retrieve that I want as a guide. And so as a guide, you need baits that are idiot baits, that not for idiots, but for people of different abilities, and baits that just cast it out, reel it in, cast it out, and work it the way I tell you. It's going to catch fish. You can't screw it up. And so the difference between a manta and a wobble. So awesome video.
The one thing with the manta too that's different compared to other stuff is, it doesn't have a tail, it doesn't have that, but it has a lot of swing. And when it's out far, you can get it swinging 2 to 3 feet each way. So that's just something different that I do. That's why I do throw the manta sometimes, but I love the wobble. I love a weagle. There's different times and places for different baits. That's for sure.
Good stuff. Right. Good stuff. What do you got for second video?
Second video. This was a awesome topwater eat. And the net job could be better, but it's a great video otherwise.
I'll take credit for the net job when it comes up and explain it.
So yeah, I mean, this is the prime eat that all of us musky anglers could ask for. You see that big wave coming in behind your bait, you see it. At this point, I slightly speed up my top water, trying to get it to bite away from the boat. It doesn't go, so then I go into my finish. It was the change in direction which got her to bite. But she kind of caught me off guard. I didn't think she was going to go right away. I thought maybe I was going to get another turn. So I got kind of caught up in the trolling motor there with the hook set. But I still got I saw the way that fish ate it, and I actually set up on the fish, and she T-boned that bait like this, and she had the back hook right in the corner of the mouth. So that perfect hook set that hook right in the corner of the fish's mouth.
There we go.
That wasn't actually terrible, but you might have been covering the bad part of the hook, the net.
She did get caught, or the bait got caught on the edge of the net. I mean, it happens sometimes. The fish.
You got it though. So
yeah.
It's worse.
It's a rookie mistake. If you don't have a clean shot at a fish and you can't net it head first, my advice is don't go for it, because the worst thing that can happen is you lose that fish at the side of the boat. Nobody in the boat feels good about that. And as a guide, I haven't lost very many at the side of the boat in my life, but I could tell you every one of them. The memory is still here. That sticks with you. So I know better. I thought I had a shot at that fish, and I wanted it. It was a rare mistake. We'll call it a rare mistake. So if you don't have a clean shot, don't take at it. Don't take the shot at it netting. And fortunately, I have made that mistake before, and I did. You're right, Jesse. I do know how to fix that mistake, and I got lucky and flipped it into the net. Nobody knew, but netting a fish at the side of the boat is can be a really tough and challenging job for a guide, especially for inexperienced people. Got any comments on that, Jesse?
I used to like make anniversary posts and being like, oh, Doug, 8 years and never botched a net job. And I botched my first net job this year, actually. And I couldn't even believe it. But like, there's you do need to have patience. I had to net one of his 53-incher on pipestone, and like that fish fought so hard, and like there get so many close opportunities where in that scenario, I think a lot of times, like even still to this day as an experienced angler, I'm like, I want to get that fish in the net as fast as I can. So you're like, okay, but then you're second guessing. You're like, is it time? And then they freak out. And so I think a lot of people, it's good to understand and communicate with your partner, like, all right, lift it up. Like, okay, yeah. Now I'm like, all right, is she ready? Because like I need also to like communicate with the person that has the fish on so that they feel confident too. Because like you said, you shouldn't ever do it if you don't like feel good about it. But also it's like sometimes you don't have that much time. So like then it gets off and you're like, I should have freaking netted it 2 seconds ago. But then Doug's like, you wouldn't have got it in the net anyways. But like it's hard. It's just like this weird in between where you're like, it's got to be like the perfect moment. And then, but if you're going for it, you do not hesitate. You go.
Yeah.
That's where you pancake them. Like I've had hooks in the side of the net.
And I'll add a tip on if that happens and the fish gets caught on the side of the net, and what I usually do. I've seen people flip the net over and trying to get it in the back way and stuff like that. I find what works the best, I've saved multiple fish this way, is I'll actually push the fish out and then pull the net in and try to then scoop it underneath. That seems to work most of the time if it doesn't get off. That's my tip.
I just straight up panic, and then I just say, well, it's gonna
I use the panic approach too, Jeff.
Yeah. It's just a free for all at that point if we get it. That's a good point, though. I've never tried that, but I should, because I solo fish a ton, and like that's hard because like you don't have any rod control when you're at the tip of your rod and you're trying to extend it as far as possible.
At that point, I throw the rod. It's the fish is attached to the net or the bait in the net. That's I've got 2 hands on the net and I pull it in and scoop. That's what I do. There could
be blooper rolls of people trying to solo fish net that is just like, holy shit, what even happened there?
Yeah. The nets are so big, so it's really hard. And when you got a fish that big and they go crazy, that's why you have to have patience sometimes, especially when you're solo. So yeah,
you hit on a good point, Jesse, about partnership and communication, and so we just happen to have a video on that. It's like almost like you led us to that. So a Brent Bocek video, and this one's, we think it's a muskie, but wait till the end and have a look.
Yeah, that stained water really had us tricked. Oh, there's one. Good body positioning.
Set with his hip, went from standing sideways to right foot back, took the step.
So weird. This was a few years ago. I have a little bit less gray. I think you switched on the top there.
So this muskie, the water is dirty. We can't see, and the fish is only a foot under the water, but it is running around.
All right.
It's got to be a big fish.
No, for people who aren't familiar, don't stand toe to toe with a muskie and decide that you guys are going to punch each other in the face till somebody falls. If the fish wants to go around the front of the boat, go with it. If it wants to go all the way around the boat, go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Do not draw a line in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to rip those hooks out. So Brent and I have changed position. How many times already here? There we go again.
At least 4 or 5.
I'm waiting for one shot. See, now I have patience.
Look at that. Well, ain't that something? That's a fish I've never ever caught before.
A Loch Ness
And
monster.
I sure didn't expect to catch one on the
Let's have a look. Did we get a look at our muskie now, Brent?
Oh, sturgeon.
Yeah.
Was that on a Suick?
It was on a wobble.
Was on a wobble.
Yep.
Cast it, hooked it in the head,
Top of the head, yeah.
hooked it in the mouth, and then because the water was dirty, we just knew it was like 40 inches long and swimming around. It's a really strong fish for late in the year, and so yeah,
It fought like it was probably a 50-inch muskie the way she was bulldogging there.
yeah. But exactly what we talked about: teamwork in netting and not rushing it. And so, geez, it's almost like we've gone full circle on a casting show, talking about strategies and ending up with netting.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a good plan, team. Well done. Is there another question that you have?
I was just gonna say I can throw some questions up for here. All right. Give me one sec. This one's for Jessie.
Put me on the spot.
What is your favorite size thriller? And do you upsize the front hook on your thrillers?
I do not upsize any of the hooks. I do change the weight system a lot. I like to screw a different bunch of weights in there just to see. My goal is to get the slowest, a very slow dead rise. That's my goal. And a very even, like, dead rise. So my favorite size, you'll never see me throwing anything under this at 10-inch. I probably enjoy the 12-inch the most. People might think that's crazy. Like, even in the springtime, I never throw a 9 or a 7. And I think that's just because I fish such deep water. And you don't get the rise like you do with those bigger Suicks. So yeah, 10-inch or 12-inch, and I don't change the hooks. I do tune the tail, but that's about it.
All right, good stuff.
That jumps into the second question I had.
Oh yeah, this comes into play with any lure. Like, if you take it out of the package and you throw it right away, you're doing it wrong. You need to sharpen the hooks every single time. But, like, you need to look at your Suick in the water, see how it's working. Tune the tail. You can change the depth with, like, how the tail's running. Sometimes you have to change the eye to see if it's going left or it's going right. So the tail does a lot.
Gonna tune it.
So this is the Suick out of the box, and it's got a more even tail at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your tail is flatter, your Suick is not diving very deep right now. It's probably running a foot and a half. But with a weighted Suick, as soon as I bend the back tail down, now my pulls force the Suick to go on a much deeper dive. And if I'm working this quicker with a weighted Suick, I'm getting 3, 4, even 5 feet of depth out of it. So weighted, non-weighted controls your depth. And then the angle that your tail is at the back is going to let you fish, in 6 inches of clear water over weeds. You can flatten it right out, have a non-weighted Suick, and that'll still work. So, yeah. And that's, you know what else? I really like this as a strobe. I consider this a flasher, like, especially on those blue sky days. When you cast this out and you pull it in, the one nice thing about the Suick is that it's got sideways wobble, and when that sun is coming off of that, you see that flash, you see that refracting light, and that flash of light in the fish world is a sign that somebody's eating something or somebody's getting eaten, and everybody wants to eat somebody else's fish or get on something. So it's an instant sign for somebody to get turned on and get hungry and go over and see it. So
I think it's important to point out. I think it's important to point out that when you bend that tail, it's when you're pulling it through, the water's hitting that tail is what's making that dive down.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you bend it, the more it's going to dive on you, as you were saying, John, until you get to a certain point. But it's the resistance against the water that's actually making that dive against that tail.
Absolutely. Key feature of the Suick. What do we got coming up for social media? What are you doing in the next little while? You just did Minnesota. You got any more shows, Jessie?
I'm actually going to stop by the Wausau show for one day. I hear that it's a pretty great show. It has a lot of like small bait companies, a lot of like homemade bait makers. So I'm going to check that out. And apparently they have a really good swap meet. And Doug and I love a good swap meet because we can find some old lures that people don't think work anymore, and they work great. So it's just, and they're cheap.
Swap meets are fantastic. One person's throwaway is gold that you're looking for. So absolutely fantastic.
I do have to control Doug a little bit because his old school pounder collection is worth more than both of our homes put together. So we have to go in there with a strict budget and one of those like backpacks with a leash on it, and he wears it and I hold the leash. So it's pretty serious.
All right. Listen to the boss, Doug. Listen to the boss.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. What else? What do we have coming up? I guess our next big event, you're out tomorrow, aren't you, Brent?
I'm going to the Niagara Muskie Association tomorrow night to do a talk over in Lackawanna, New York. You're
crossing the border.
I am.
And going over to talk to New Yorkers. Fantastic.
Yeah. And then the next night, I'm at the Straight Line Anglers in Grimsby on Wednesday night.
You are a high demand guy. Well done. To talk. Okay. Cool. And of course, at the end of this month, on March 29th, we have the Canadian Muskie Odyssey in Peterborough, Ontario, the largest muskie show in Canada. Brent, Noah, and I will all be there in the Ottawa River Muskie Factory booth. The Muskie Factory Baits Company booth. And so we'll hopefully look forward to seeing you all then. Anything else you want to say?
I'd like to put in a request to put the Muskie Odyssey on a different day next year so we can go. It's always like borderline walleye season. And we've been, I went like, well, it's probably like 6 years or 7 years ago now. And it's like one of the best shows.
In Bowmanville. That was in Bowmanville.
Yeah, they did the women's panel and I spoke on it. And Doug would love to go too. It's just it always is like super late for us, and he gets into walleye guiding. And once we have our open water, it's hard to think about shows. So
hey,
Doug and I did have that discussion at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show, so we will try to pick up on that discussion for next year.
Yeah. Don't do it just for us, but put in a good word.
Well,
that's out of my hands. The date's out of my hands.
Yeah. Brent may know some people in Muskies Canada, so he's going to put in a good word or three, because getting you guys at the show would be good for all of us. Jessie, thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Thanks for being such a great guest. That was a very good, very informative show, I think.
Thank you.
So
thank you so much. Yeah, if anyone ever has any questions either, I'm pretty active on social media, so feel free to reach out to me. I try to respond to all my messages, and I just genuinely love talking about fishing. So
Suick questions, muskie questions, or bat questions, send them all to Jessie.
Send them over.
She's got you covered.
I got a new business, and it's bat extermination.
Good luck with that.
Killing only, not safely rescuing. They will end up dead. That's just
not a catch and release bat service. Okay.
No.
Stated. All right. And on that note, I guess we'll say goodnight to everybody. We'll see you all the first Monday of April. We'll just be hot off of the Muskie Odyssey. Catch you next month. Can't wait. Muskie season's getting closer. Not long. Muskies rock. Thanks, everybody. Ciao.
Night, everybody.